thoroughbreds will have one or none. And this isn't good because it means the top of the pelvis is touching, and it changes the alignment of the femurs of the hind end and how they sit in the pelvis, and it changes the horse's ability to use their hind end in the right way. And you'll often see, if they've got a collapsed pelvis, they will rope walk, so the horse will step one foot in front of the other instead of walking and following the tracks of the front feet. So for Joy, we find the top of the tuberosacrals, and she has one, maybe two, 1.5. If I was being generous, I'd say 2. So that doesn't mean that the horse is a write-off. It just means it's something you have to think about. We're looking at also in front of the tuberosacrals. We should find a nice soft space in there, and that can tell us about the about whether or not the horse has a sacralized lumbar. And there is a lot more detail that you can go into with this, but if the simplest way that I can explain it for somebody who is looking at a horse is you need to find that nice soft space in here that probably has at least 3 fingers space that you can fit in there, and then you should feel L6 up here, and then back further you should be able to feel kind of L1, S1, S2, sorry. There's more detail that you can go to, and this Bex Den has some really great videos on her Facebook page and on her Patreon about how to assess this and count and find the spacing. But another thing that you can do to check how well they tilt in their pelvis, ideally you want somebody holding onto the horse. From the top here, just a slight pressure with your fingers either side of the tuberosacrals. You're going to run it down, she bends out, and then she comes in and tucks up. She wasn't too happy about that, but that shows me that she has movement this way and this way in her pelvis. That's great. That means this is a horse that's going to be able to step under itself. If you do that with the horse and they don't want to tuck under at all, or it's very limited, that is telling me that there is something wrong in that SI joint. So if that horse, if you're wanting it for jumping, for high level dressage, for collection, it's probably not going to be able to make it. Alright, good Joy. Back. Good. Alright. We can look at the steepness of this. You'll find on some thoroughbreds it's almost like a 45-degree angle where it drops off. Not ideal, because that will tell us a bit about whether or not the pelvis is rotated. So looking at the hind legs, now Joy has what's called a negative palmar angle, so she has very limited to no heel in her hind feet, which sets the bones back more this way instead of being up on the nice aligned angle. We can fix that either through trimming or through therapeutic shoeing, but it's something to be aware of. It's manageable and it's usually fixable, right? But when the horse has good alignment, so because she has MPA, she is standing slightly under herself, so there isn't a perfect alignment that comes from the point of her buttock down. It's not bad though. If I saw a horse where I went here and their hind leg was somewhere under here, I'd be aware of that. Another thing to look at is how easily can you pick up she's so good, look at her. How easily can you pick up the hind feet? Now, a lot of horses, when you go to pick up the hind feet, they'll pull it right up and back down. It doesn't mean anything. It's just that they are trying to unlock their stay apparatus. Because of where the patella sits and it slides up and down through a very fine groove, and they stand with it locked in place when they're standing, you're asking them to pick up their foot. That patella will slide slightly in the groove and probably sit in a slightly uncomfortable spot, so they will pull the leg all the way up and then give it back down in order to just align that patella back in the back in the groove. So like she's done there, and then she gives me the foot. What I'm looking for is whether or not she'll give it. How long can she hold it here for? A horse that won't give it, and that cannot hold it up for a long period of time, is telling me that there's something wrong, something probably painful or uncomfortable in the joints. Aside from, you have to consider obviously the behavioural aspects of that. What else can we look at? A lot of off-the-track horses will have, they call them wind puffs or wind galls. I see it more in standardbreds than I see in thoroughbreds, but that's where the fetlocks, good girl, stand, get a kind of a puffiness about them, and they look like they're swollen, and they kind of can feel a bit soft to touch. Generally, what that's from is I think, is my understanding of it, I might not be right, my understanding is that there are micro tears in the tendons that let the fluid out, and that it fills in the joint, and that the harder the horse works, the more puffing you can get, and the less it works, the less you can get. Some horses, it never goes away. My last standardbred that I had has never went away. They were always there to an extent. They would just get better or worse. So it's something to consider. Another thing that you can check, and I haven't actually checked this on Joy, so this could be an interesting thing for us. Take hold of their tail and just give her a little pull towards this way. And if you can see the stifle joint moving, she has a nice stable stifle. There's no kind of like slop or buckle with it. She holds herself. Right? The other things that you can check is when the horse is walking away, like I said, do they rope walk? Do they walk nice and wide? Do they walk too wide? Do they paddle or dish in the hind end? A lot of the other stuff that you can look at in the hind end is stuff that's going to be manageable. It is not unusual to find these horses with a severe lack of muscle in here. Another thing that you can check is how willing are they to take their leg out behind them. Good girl. Up. Good girl. Good girl. Big stretch. And this is often a stretch, especially for thoroughbreds. So she's holding on to this, which tells me she's probably got really tight psoas muscles. Not unusual at all for an off-the-track thoroughbred. That is generally because they have, especially when they're coming out the start gates, they have to sit and really push, and they spend a lot of time in a gallop gait, which causes those muscles to shorten. So the psoas muscles, they attach up in here somewhere, and they attach back to here, I think. Might be wrong. I'm just thinking from memory here. So you can understand then how between those 2 points, if the horse is constantly in a point of contraction, those muscles shorten. So this stretch is, what I did there is basically a stretch that you can do to help them out with that. Probably the one other thing that I really look for is particularly the hind end. But hello sweetheart, I'm so sorry. A lot of thoroughbreds you will find will have a raised point about here, which is